Hey y'all, Mike with Cardboard Kingdom. Welcome back to another Disney Lorcana video. Today we're going to be unveiling the Grail card that I purchased on eBay. This was a purchase that honestly kind of came out of nowhere. Threw out an offer, it was accepted. I thought my offer was well below market value, and the seller snap accepted it. I couldn't believe it. I was instantly giddy, and honestly, it was at such a good price that haven't had an ounce of buyer's remorse. So definitely did not expect to have this card this early in my collecting journey. I had gone back and forth quite a bit about if I wanted to purchase it at all and add it to my collection, and honestly, it took a couple months to kind of come to the point where I decided that I did want to pursue this particular set of cards. And fast forward to now, and we have it. So, with that being said, we are going to unveil the card, and then we'll talk about why I purchased it, what went into the offer, and yeah, kind of just the thought process behind it. So, with that being said, drum roll, please. Da, 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 da. It is, and to be fair, I posted on Instagram. I also mentioned it in Discord and showed it in Discord, and so most of you guys probably have already seen it. But it is the first edition D23 2022 Elsa Snow Queen card. This is one of the quick background on the 2022 box set. If you guys are not familiar, this is the kind of go to market strategy of Lorcana with the first chapter. These were the first cards ever released within Lorcana, so they came out in 2022 at the D23 convention in Anaheim. They released a box set of 6. One of the cards in the box set of 6 was the Elsa. The Elsa is the most valuable card. It has kind of become the Chase or the Charizard of Lorcana, if you will. And this is the only Elsa that has a first edition stamp on it. So in total, there's about 900 copies out there. The copies are very hard to grade. We're talking sub 50% gem mint grade quality. So definitely less than, there'll probably be no more than 400, 500 in total PSA 10 population if it ever gets that high. I was fortunate enough to get a copy that I think is very, very, very strong. I think I'll get into kind of some of the more quality aspects of why I bought this card in a minute, but there was 6 that came in the box set for the D23 2022 box set. There was then a Mickey Mouse that also came in the same like release. That copy though is not foil. It does have the first edition stamp. It's the Brave Little Taylor art. It's got the first edition stamp, but it's not foil, and it didn't come in the box set. There's a few more of those out there. There's no set number, but closer to like 1,500 to 2,000 copies of that card, where the other ones are thought to have around 900 in total population. So obviously a very limited card, a very rare card. Definitely kind of the biggest grail of Lorcana in my opinion at this time. Obviously, there's something to be said about maybe the Mickey being worth more, the trophy card, the serialized out of 500 Mickey right now. My thought process on why I pursued this card versus that card is just simply the fact that that card is serialized out of 500, and there's been speculated that some of them were essentially destroyed because they didn't meet the print quality standard, and so it's serialized out of 500, but maybe there's only 200 or 300. There's a lot of unknowns about that card, and I think we're going to continue to see it be released as we get into the challenge events for next year, maybe even Continentals, maybe Worlds. And so I just think there's a lot more to come on that card, and I think that right now, I think asking prices around like 15 to 20,000. I just think it's overpriced, and I didn't want to participate at that price, and so I had kind of switched my lens towards the D23 2022 first edition cards, and that is kind of why I came to this purchase that you see here today. Now, getting into the card specific. This is one, obviously I talk a lot on the channel about being a proponent of PSA more so than Beckett and CGC, simply because that's what's wildly accepted in the market and where you're typically going to get the most bang for your buck. Now, this particular card, and really I've noticed a trend here where I don't think that a lot of people in Lorcana understand the grading scales and how they change between companies. And just, typically, and this, it's not a guarantee, and so I don't want to make any promises or anything like that, but historically, if you have a BGS 9.5 and you cross grade it over to PSA, it's going to get a PSA 10 because of how BGS grades their cards, the subgrades that they have. Typically, if you add up all those values, it's going to accumulate to a PSA 10. And so in this particular case, the reason why I put an offer out on this card, because I was not offering on all of the Elsas that came up, and I was also not bidding on all of the else's that came up. I was very strategic about what the copies that I wanted to buy. This one was listed, and I made the offer, and he accepted it, or they accepted it. And once again, I did not expect to get this card. It was kind of like a lowball offer, well below market value, in my opinion. And like I think right now the lowest BGS 9.5 Elsa Snow Queen I think is around 8,000. I paid substantially less than that. Now, obviously that's the lowest listing. Obviously, that's not saying someone would pay it, but I paid a lot less than that, thousands less than that. And at the end of the day, once again, I think this card has a lot of upside. So when you look at the subgrades, you see that there's a 10 corners grade and a 10 edges grade. Historically, those are the two hardest grades to come by. Typically, you're going to have whitening on the edges and you're going to have whitening on the corners, and that's the easiest way for your grade to go down. If you have even the smallest white dot, you're going to go to a 9.5, 9, 8, etc. Kind of with the more whitening that you have. This particular card has a 10 edges and 10 corners, which kind of intrigued my interest because I know that that's very, very hard to come by. So we'll flip it over and take a look at the back here really quick. You can see it's kind of hard with the glare, but there's little to no whitening anywhere on the card, and it's just a gorgeous copy of this particular card. So I'm kind of buying the card, not the grade, as it relates to this particular example. It's in a BGS 9.5 case. A lot of people think that that means it's not a 10. When in reality, if I sent this card to CGC, I have no doubt it would get a pristine. If I sent it to PSA, I have no doubt it would get a PSA 10. Now, where I think this card has upside and why I like this particular copy of the card is because I think it has a chance of even upgrading at BGS. You can do what's called a graded card review, GCR, where you submit the card, they'll take a look at it and they'll say, hey, it deserves a bump or it does not. And then if it does, then you'll pay them and they'll reholster it with the new label. You would say, well, why would that happen? They already graded it. At the end of the day, everyone grades a little bit differently. And what I like about this particular copy is it already has 2 of the 10 subgrades. It has corners and edges, which are the hardest. Now you'll see that it got a 9.5 on surface and a 9 on centering. Why I think this card has upside is because the centering or both the surface is kind of an anomaly. They don't really give a lot of 10s on surface. I don't really know what goes into that. It got a 9.5, so clearly it's close. But if I get a half subgrade upgrade on either the centering or the surface, this card would go to a BGS Pristine 10, which there is no Pristine 10 Elsas to my knowledge of the D23 2022 Snow Queen edition. So that in itself would make this card incredibly valuable. While I don't really collect BGS as in my personal collection, BGS is, in terms of like grails, it's kind of I would say the best place you can get a card graded in a high grade if you do have a grail card. For example, if you have any popular, let's say, Pokemon card, if you have a BGS Pristine 10 versus a PSA 10 first edition Charizard, the BGS Pristine 10 is going to go for significantly higher than the PSA 10 or the CGC 10 because the BGS is just respected, and there's a lot of people who collect BGS 10s, BGS black labels, etc. And so the BGS in a higher grade typically is going to drive a lot more value than one of the other companies when it comes to these particular grail cards. So if I got a 9.5 if I got either a bump to 9.5 on centering or I got a bump to a 10 on surface, this card would then move to a 10 based on the other grades. And then I think, that'd be a substantial increase in value just based on the grade alone. The copy of the card is very, very clean. You'll see that the centering on the front of the card is a little bit heavy left to right. And also, let's just give a shout out to the enchanted foil on this card. Look at that thing. It is just a gorgeous card. Iconic art. You can't really put it into words how pretty this card is. It is it's magical. You see the snowflakes there. It is just 10 out of 10. But when you look at the front of this card, you'll see that the centering left to right is a little bit thick on the left side. Top to bottom is pretty fair. But really just the right side of the front is the only place that the centering has any issue. If you flip it over to the back, you can see that it's pretty well top to bottom, left to right. Honestly, pretty. I would say this is a 10 centering as it relates to the back Very, very clean copy, very, very well centered. The front, with that little bit of left to right, was enough for the grader to give it a 9. I think it's got a chance of going to a 9.5 on the centering. Now, obviously, at the end of the day, I will probably try to get it. Probably try the graded card review a couple times, to be honest, and see if I can get it across the line to the BGS Pristine 10. If I can't, then I'll cross it and get the PSA 10. But at the end of the day, I just wanted the card, and this particular copy just warranted having some initial discussion about it, because it is a very, very clean copy of the card. And once again, if it does get that BGS Pristine 10, that would be a significant spike in value, and it's got even more upside than I think the card has already. At the end of the day, I think having a first edition Elsa within Lorcana and the confines of what we've learned through the last year and the popularity of the game and how well Ravensburger's gone to market, the machine that is Disney, and as we get into Continentals and Worlds, get into our next set reveals, the DLCs, like, I just think this train is going to continue to keep going. I think that we're poised for a very, very good like next year or two as it relates to the collectibles market, and I want to be positioned accordingly. If my theory is correct, at least golden Mickeys are going to continue to be given out as we go into the next year of DLCs, Continentals, Worlds, etc. I think that we're going to continue to see the price come down on those, but this is one where I could see the price continue to trend up. We've seen a lot of sales on this card lately. Just in October, I think there was 5 or 6 total sales of this card. So when you think about how many are out there, quite a bit of sales volume. We almost saw as much sales volume on this card as we did for the Elsa in Chapter 1. And so with that being said, I just think that this was one that I was worried about getting out of reach. I have sold off a lot of my PSA 10s, as I've mentioned in a lot of my videos. If you guys have been tracking my eBay store, I've sent quite a few cards to auction over the last couple months. In addition to, I've done some of my grade optimization stuff and some of my vintage Pokemon that I will be selling once I get it back. And so I had a lot of moving pieces and parts to this, and I offered what I could pay and what I was comfortable with. It was accepted, and here we are. So, in my opinion, this is until we have to see what happens with the Mickeys, and then once the World's one of one Mickey comes out, that will be the most valuable card in Lorcana without a doubt. In my opinion, this is second to that, just simply based on the dynamics that I mentioned above. Now, if they don't give out any more Mickeys and it ends up that it's only, at this point, we're probably at like 150 Mickeys that have been released. That's a blind guess. I've not looked at the numbers. If it stops there, then that card's gonna command a premium and probably be more valuable than this one. But the idea that this was 2022 first edition, like this is it, right? This is the Grail of Lorcana. It's the biggest chase character in terms of Elsa. It's where I want to be positioned. It took a long time to get here, though. If you guys have been around for a while, 6 months ago or so, I was saying that there's no way I could pay the D22 or D23 2022 prices. The fact that someone bought this card, they got the box set for like $50 or $100 a couple of years ago. Now the box set's going for 12, 13 grand. If you get them all in PSA 10s, it's over 20 grand. This card in particular in a PSA 10 is like a 7, 8, even higher $1,000 card now. So there's a lot of moving parts. It's gone up a lot quicker than I would have wanted, but I think we're poised for a very good couple of years, like I mentioned, and this is a card that could get out of reach where I would never be able to obtain it again. So once again, I did not go to a buy it now listing. I was not monitoring the auctions. I was simply looking for a good copy to make an offer on. I would have went higher, to be completely honest. This person accepted my very first offer, and it was a done deal. They shipped it to the authenticator, and then it came to me. But overall, I think we're poised for some very good times ahead in the collectibles market. I think Lorcana's got an immense runway for growth and opportunity, and I wanted to have a card that's kind of part of the legacy that is going to go along with that. And so that is why I purchased the D23 2022 first edition Elsa Snow Queen and a Beckett 9.5 grade. But once again, the copy of the card is an extremely clean copy. 10 edges, 10 corners, 9.5 surface, 9 centering. That centering, immaculate on the back. Just, you can't make a better copy than this. And so, little bit left to right heavy on the front, but it is a very, very clean copy. and I think it's got a lot of upside just in terms of the growth of Lorcana, as well as just being a fantastic copy of the card. Of a card that does not always get a 10 by any means. And so I talk a lot about getting cards that are not easy to grade and cards that might be a little bit more of a chase. This is definitely one that falls within that, and it just happens to be probably the card with the biggest demand within all of the entire collector space of Lorcana. So with that being said, guys, that is it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please let me know your thoughts on it. I know I've mentioned this several times. I mentioned this card several times since I bought it, so I apologize for putting this video off for so long, but it's been a long time coming, and just didn't have the time to make the video. So with that being said, guys, please let me know your thoughts on the card, and we will be back with another video soon. Bye.